great. Just want to let you know, guys, this is Richard Doig from Hub St. Ives. And Richard, I guess from your point of view, how long you been doing this for? Okay, and what in your own words, what do you do?
Okay, so I've been business to business for about 40 years.
Oh, wow.
Putting in well-being campaigns to businesses, and that's really been my career path. Has
Mm.
been looking to help businesses effectively improve the lives of their employees. So that's really been my career all the way through. And traditionally, the solution for that is benefits and perks and services. So, my journey will typically be through CEO, managing director, HR director.
Mm.
There'll be a conversation about what they think their employees need. We'll go off and source it, and we'll implement it, we'll manage it. And that's been the way it's worked for about 30 odd years. You then add in complexity of running surveys, employee surveys for businesses, so they can actually start to get a handle on how people are feeling. But it's very ad hoc at the moment. It's kind of one survey at a time. Maybe they'll focus on mental health, or maybe they'll focus on engagement. Then of course there's a time lag, because they'll have to report back to the board or the senior partners, get an approval for something. So by the time the poor old employee actually gets to see something, it may be 3 to 6 months down the road, and they've forgotten, the survey they filled in all those months ago. So Hug, very briefly, came from conversations with our clients at that time, who were looking for much more in-depth feel for how their workforce was feeling. Bear in mind, this is pre-COVID at this point. So what we were being asked to do is to provide multiple surveys going into the workforce, getting all these things completed, feeding it all back to the board and to the execs. And it was a real mess. We had different surveys from different providers, running at different timescales, different management information kind of systems coming back. So Hug was born from this idea of trying to bring all this stuff together. So not only do you have multiple reports running, but you've got multiple survey tools being run. The key thing about Hug, though, when we were talking to our clients, and we kind of took this to a couple of local universities, so we worked with Plymouth University and Exeter University, and when we were discussing it with their kind of psychology teams, it became pretty apparent that it all needed to be tied up into one platform, one web platform.
Sure.
So what we did was we worked with these unis. We put 4 question sets together, one for mental health, one for financial health, one for lifestyle, and one for engagement. And all these things are intertwined. You basically, if you've got a challenge on one of them, you've got a challenge across the board.
That's right.
So we run these 4 surveys together. We then, to get around this idea of this time lag between surveying people and actually getting some kind of benefits to them, we built in analytics, we built in algorithms, which basically measure how an employee is responding to their questions, and it's coming up with support in real time. So, if I'm sort of working my way through these 4 survey tools, it takes about 10 minutes to do all 4, so it's not a heavy thing. Hug is actually in the background saying, okay, well, so you've got a challenge on mental health, or you've got a challenge on engagement. I will signpost you to support and resources that will help, now, because now's when you've got the need, not in 3 or 6 months' time. So we put all this stuff together into Hug. We then we can signpost them to any benefits or perks that their business currently gives them. We give them a Hug score. So we do everything that we can for the employee. It's an employee-centric tool, basically, Hug. But then for the employer, who's obviously paying for all this stuff, because it's a license fee model, the employer gets a dashboard with all this anonymized information coming through. So they get in real time a snapshot of all of their employees put together.
Wow.
How they're doing on mental health, financial health, lifestyle, and engagement. So they get to see in real time, if you like, taking a pulse of the business. They get to see how the workforce is feeling. We track all this over time, so that the business, the employer, HR, whoever, can go back and say, okay, so we ran Hug, we got these scores, we did this, we changed something, we brought in a new benefit, we brought in a new perk, we gave everybody their birthday off or whatever. Then we run Hug again, maybe 3 months later, we get a new score and we see if what we did had any effect. And if we didn't, we try something different. And if we did, that's brilliant. We move on to the next thing. So the idea of running a kind of one-off survey every couple of years is not providing any solutions for any businesses. So Hug was there really to fill a need that we were being told was there by our clients. And certainly the universities backed us up on this, to fill a need to produce a regular kind of pulse survey that gives the employees real-time support when they need it, but then feeds that information back to the business so they can see anonymized reporting of how their entire workforce is looking. So whether that's 5 people, 50, 2,000, 5,000, doesn't really matter. The platform's fully scalable. Launched 1st of January this year. It's had a life cycle of about 4 years so far. Took us a long time to do all the research, work with the universities. Took us a year to build Hug. So we've got a kind of soft launch in January. We did a funding round in March, got 150,000 into the business. So that's allowed us to bring in 2 developers and 2 salespeople.
Right.
So we now have a business. We have a small business.
That's good.
It's taken a long time. So we've got a small business running. We're just about to, we've just kicked off a crowdfunding round with Seeders. So that's going live literally today. Looking for potentially another 150,000, which will allow us to expand the sales team, build in UK traction, deliver Hug version 2, which we're working on at the moment, and go international. So it's a bit of a whirlwind trip. It's been very interesting. It wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the Cornish network and the grant systems that we used in the early days. So it all comes back to that, the help of the 2 universities. So we're launching it in Cornwall. We're based just outside St Ives. If we get going, we'll probably open an office in Penzance. That's kind of our spiritual home.
Yeah.
And we'll go onwards and outwards from there.
That's it. And Penzance is right down the road, as they say, don't throw away from St. Ives.
Yeah.
But yeah, and also
most of Hug was dreamt up in Penzance. So there you go.
Well, I was going to ask you on that one, Richard. I hear the passion in your voice, and it's like I'm really getting this, and you had to go through some hurdles, I should just say, and obviously, all the systems and the processes there. What would you say has been your biggest issue or challenge that you have to overcome as a business leader?
Biggest challenge was moving from, I suppose, short-term development grants. So Cornwall is really good at kind of setting things up and getting things going, which is brilliant. But our biggest challenge was, really getting through COVID, when everything just closed down.
Yes.
So the challenge was coming out of that, getting what we would call larger scale funding, which is really hard to find in Cornwall. There's very few angels in Cornwall. There's very few investment networks in Cornwall. So European funding, brilliant. That helps with getting started, the kind of the 10 to 15,000 blocks. But when we were looking for investment to actually recruit and bring the team together, we found it really difficult. We ended up in London to get that bit done.
Okay.
So that was the biggest challenge, is just to jump from this development funding to getting us into a good place to build a small business.
Okay, great. And what would you say has been your biggest learning, I guess, out of all of this there with the challenges, everything that's happening? What's been your biggest learning that you could take away from this since you've been in business?
It's a roller coaster, man. It's like 1 minute it's looking great. You've got a few clients coming through. Then we hit COVID, so most of those went bust. So we went up, we went down, we trickled along through COVID. Could we survive or not? We got to the point coming out of COVID that we were looking to close the business down. then building back up, getting the funding from the investors. You're up on a high again. You know, then you're looking at the market and the recession and inflation and businesses lack of confidence. So you're down again. So really, it's longevity. It's having the belief in the core product. You've got to go right back to the beginning and really latch on to what you were originally thinking about, you know, when you first came up with the idea. And there were 2 or 3 of us that pulled this thing together. But you've got to really believe in the core strength of the product and not let all the noise that goes on around you, you know, all the potential investors that are telling you it'll never work, you know, all the no's you get before you get a yes. It is pretty classic stuff. I mean, I hear it again and again and again. But it really is having the determination to get through this pretty horrific roller coaster of emotional kind of, you know, is it worth it kind of stuff.
Sure.
So the learning curve has been, just hanging on to the original idea, to the original concept that you had, and don't really be swayed to modify or change that much unless you believe in the people you're talking to.
Okay, I see that. And what would you say, Rich? That's really good. What would you say? What would you give advice? And what advice would you give to a 18-year-old who wants to start their own business? And what would you say to the advice that you give to that 18-year-old?
18 is a good age, you know.
Yes.
Mid-50s, you're kind of you're running on low batteries there. So difficult to keep the passion going. I've got an 18-year-old son, so I know the amount of energy that these guys can produce. My message to an 18-year-old entrepreneur would be test your theory with as many people as you can. You know, would you buy this, or would a business buy this if you're doing B2C or B2B? So test it. Link into the people that can really help you, positive people that are already in business. Test the business plan, have a plan, we'll get a plan together, test the plan. And then if it's a piece of tech that you're looking at, make sure you get a really good, like-minded developer behind you that will actually kind of build this piece of kit that you're looking for.
Sure.
So really the key thing is test your theory. Just don't go out there with, well, I think this is going to be absolutely brilliant, so I'm going to go off and try and get funding for it, because you'll get knocked back. So there are lots of really good networks, especially in Cornwall, that will test your product, think it through, help you put a business plan together, and really just scope it out. So message is, as I said, having an 18-year-old son, don't go running around in circles, burning energy where you don't need to.
Yeah.
Focus on testing the thing out, talking to your friends and family. You know, is this going to work? Then getting involved in a network. You know, we've got the Cornish Business Show coming up in October. You know, just get out there and have a chat with people, see what they think. You're not giving anything away. Put your business plan together, get your development funding, and get out there with a prototype and test the market.
Yes. Yeah. That's great. And that's really valuable advice there, Richard. I really appreciate that. And that really concludes the interview there. So I'm going to start recording now. And